Hi, Tuesday chat time. I dug out this one as well, which I was going to get rid of. But I thought since I'm building a 132nd and 148th, I might as well actually just add in a 172nd at the same time so that I can have built 3 scales all at the same time. So 148th is 1.5 times larger than 172nd, and 132nd is 1.5 times larger than 148th. I'm not sure if I have these decals anymore because I think I pilfered them for something, but I'll do a 172nd, and I'm sure I've got decals somewhere for that. That'll be quite a simple build compared to everything in the 132nd kit. So there, do you see that dimple? Because of that little sink mark by Hasegawa. I mean, overall it's pretty good. So I will add that one in. I also found this, which was, because I couldn't remember if I had one of these, so that other box contained the wrong model, and then I found this one, which is actually my Domini that's waiting to be built. So I do actually have this. Which will be quite a nice build. I've decided to build the Matchbox one in straight plastic because that's how I built it in the 70s, and I'd like sort of one of those for my 70s shelf, which I have only recently just decided to do as an official sort of theme in my builds. And I've never built this Airfix one, but I think that'll be quite nice. This one I will of course paint quite nicely. That is a nice scheme. Interestingly, I got a model of this built model from somebody quite a while back, and unbeknownst to me, they'd painted it with some sort of watercolor acrylic thing, but a type that dissolved as soon as you wiped it. So I was wiping it down to get all the dust off it, and got a whole bunch of red coming off on my cloth. Okay, so I did a bit of spraying, and that's one of the interesting things, you know, no matter how long I build, I'll always make mistakes. So this was the L-clad colors. This is for the 148th, where up to that division line, the inside will be, I guess it's titanium metal. But, and I think this might come through. Do you see that speckled effect there, especially on that corner there? See that speckled effect? It's not like that. That surface is a lot better, a lot more even. And that, I don't quite know why that happened, but what I did is I was spraying L-clad steel, cleaned it, but didn't clean the brush absolutely 100% before putting in polished aluminium. And I got it on both of them. This one isn't as bad, still a bit speckled that you can see. All I can think is that if you're going to spray the L-clads, make sure the surface is absolutely clean. I mean, it's possible that I even didn't have an absolutely clean surface, although it was sprayed gloss black, so difficult to say. Or there was a little bit of contaminant in the airbrush, which promotes the statement about test your spray action first on an equivalent thing. So if you were going to have your black, but I mean the problem is, you know, I spray this fairly often, and I haven't actually seen that before. And I sprayed my airbrush till it was dry, so there was really next to nothing, but obviously there wasn't just nothing. So, but that's okay, because that's on the lower surface, that's the upper surface, and the upper, sorry, that's the lower surface, and the upper surface being that surface is a better finish. So not as visible, except for the fact that it might hang on my ceiling. But I might put this on the wall, because I hung up that other 1/32 on the wall, and the nice thing about that, the difference between ceiling and wall, is you get to see the top surface on the wall, and it's pretty much out the way. A couple of you commented on the, it's sort of like a dangerous hanging. On that 1/32, one of the mountings underneath for the big fuel tank mount, there was a little bit of a hole, and I put a screw in there, so it's absolutely strong, but of course the nylon could still snap, or something could go wrong, and it's a heavy model hanging on the wall. But that wasn't good enough to only hang it from there, because what happens is it does this. So hanging from that point, from a point over here, it sort of hangs back, and you need to keep this here. So I had to put a separate little line to keep it touching the wall. But I'll probably put a couple of the 1/48s on the wall. That sort of seems to be working well enough. So I've sprayed clear over that now as well, because the L-clads are not a stable finish. You need some sort of, you either need the L-clad clear coat, or, as I often use, is that acrylic floor wax, and then I need to mask it and spray the blue. So this is the one for the blue Phantom, and I don't think the tape will pull off the clear coat, but I do need to be careful of that. So on this one, those intakes are now just test fitted loosely in position. There's no glue or anything, and the two halves, they're halves, but they're not exact halves, because they sort of puzzle fit into each other with a bit of an overlap. And the two pieces overlap like this with a hole in them, but it means that the one is slightly higher by an amount of the thickness of that joining piece in there. Right there, which is not an ideal method. So it's sort of a millimeter difference. The one intake actually is then ever so slightly offset at the front due to that millimeter angle there. So the phase of my fixing is that I'm sort of ready to glue these to each other, not onto the fuselage yet, but they need to fix to this thing, to that part of the intake, in such a way that you see that step there, that's the thing that you need to get rid of. So it needs to first glue to here, and then it needs to get a bit of sheet plastic so that the airflow coming in here actually smooths completely into that intake there. So that's the problem. The inner face is okay, because it's got the plate that leads up to it, but this step here, this edge, is the part that you need to get in there. So I'll thin that down as well. That'll help. That means less angle, but it's just a bit of sheet plastic and a lot of sanding. There's already a lot of sanding that's gone into these pieces and these to smooth them off and everything. So those won't get fixed into the fuselage. They will in fact get fixed to here after getting the exact position. Take it off, put in the plastic, do all the sanding and filling, and then you put those on and fix them into position. It would sort of be nice if Tamiya would, redo that side of things, because I mean, you've already got 90% of the kit right. You could do some fix-ups and fix the remainder and do a re-release. It's you know, I would imagine that would sell well for such a minimal amount of work to get a really good Phantom. I'm slightly surprised they don't. There's a little probe in there that stands into the airflow of the intake. Does anyone know what that is? Would it be measuring speed of air at the intake to help adjust that plate? To adjust the plate so that you're getting some optimized flow into there. This here at the back, this is another thing. So, you know, I was mentioning how very nicely the undercarriage doors and the speed brakes fit into their recesses. But then you get to this piece, this whole piece, which I've just loosely positioned on here. But that join line there, firstly, it's got a step, you see that? So it's a fairly easy one to fix. And it's got a little bit of gap there. So, you know, there are things on the model which fit really well. There's also gaps. So that'll glue tight, but that won't necessarily position. If you pull it there, you're getting a bigger one there. If you push it there, you're getting a bigger one here. Not difficult to fix, just, you know, slightly odd that they get some areas so well done and others need a little bit of attention. Have I just spotted something? Yes, I have. That's a little bit of an odd one. That's so over here. Okay, as I let this piece catch the light, you look at the light reflection on that curvature there. And that's all good, but this side, look at that. There's sort of a dimple of that size where my finger fits into there. There's sort of a whole dimple line there, which would be sort of a molding problem rather than a cooling problem. I don't think that's from coming out of the molds. That's sort of interesting. I hadn't noticed that before. So that actually makes the first rather large blemish of the kit. I won't do anything about that. That's okay. What else? Did I have anything else to say about this? Well, I was just going to get the I was going to start getting the LEDs right, so just for the exhaust area, so that when you look in the back, one of you guys gave me that good idea from your model, which looks pretty good. I think with the multicolor blue and red, blue and orange, I must just go and select from my LEDs. So anyway, there's still quite a bit of work here. There's no point rushing this to finish at this stage. It's got to be made quite right. Now a lot of you, this was quite surprising. Not just recently. This goes back, you know, many weeks worth of comments. The number of you that are coming back to the hobby after a very long break. As in, you know, maybe 2, 3, more than 3 decades away from the hobby. So it sort of makes me feel quite lucky that the way things ran, I didn't, at best, I only couldn't get to immediate modeling for, you know, some part of a year while studying or something like that. But mostly my modeling career has sort of gone on continuously. But quite a number of you coming back to the hobby, which firstly is really, really cool. I think it's a great hobby to come back to. And in a sense, it's actually quite easy to come back to it. You you know, you can just grab yourself any number of kits secondhand if you have, or even from your own stash if you know, if you'd kept a bunch from decades ago, and just, you know, don't be critical of yourself. Just enjoy the builds, almost like going back to when you last built them, maybe in your teens or 20s, and just pick it up there without putting the pressure on yourself, and then slowly just, well, I mean, that's some of you. Others of you are actually building really, really awesome builds, coming back to it. So that's really cool to see. Post your pics, even if they are, you know, sort of beginner builds coming back into the hobby, or if they're pretty good builds. Some of you build better than me. Not saying that I'm an expert. I just enjoy my building of all different types of kits. But I'm still, this one makes me pretty happy to finally be building a big Tamiya. Really should have done so long time ago, and this I would almost say is the perfect one to come to. It's, you don't have to correct the faults. If you don't correct the faults, you've still got a great looking build. No one's going to really know the problems with the kit unless you point them out. The dihedral difference is not something most people would pick up. The exhaust problems, the intake problems, only really an issue if you look inside the intakes. So I'm going to do a couple of LEDs on the cockpit as well, but I'm not putting them behind the displays or anything, or making instrument panels shine up. I'm just going to give a little bit of a glow from under the cockpit area. And that was another question I sort of had. I'd always known that the red colored lights for night flying, I mean, there's not much other reason to light a cockpit other than night flying. Red was sort of the color because it's the color that least affects night blindness. But I don't know what a Phantom actually has. I would have imagined it's still a red effect glow. So I'm tempted to put red LEDs, even though you're sort of used to thinking of the more greeny blue color LCD style lighting that may come from a lot of the instrumentation. But so just tell me, do you think red is the ideal, even though it sort of gives a bit of a, I'm not talking about a bright red, because it needs to be subtle. I could try and find some night flying Phantom footage, see what I can see. So anyway, tons of space here. So some of the LEDs will be about there. That's for the exhausts. And then you'll have a couple of LEDs here. I can do different colors, by the way. You can do a switching so that you've got, you can try out the red. In fact, it's probably worth doing, because if you're going to the trouble, why not just do a system where you can light it with red LEDs, even orange for a bit of a toned down red, a green blue mix, just to see what looks cool, even if that isn't exactly what it would look like. That's not, it's not like I'm building this to be an absolute exact perfect Phantom. Okay, at the moment a lot of sanding. I have been cleaning parts, I've been gluing halves. And that'll continue tonight. I'm just sort of doing a mix of parts. I happen to be working on a number of Phantom parts, but then I could find myself working on Shackleton parts again. And of course I'm getting really covered in sanding dust and everything, but that's okay. I'm used to that. I do note that my completion rate for models is quite an issue, actually. It's like For some of you, you must be wondering, when does this guy ever actually finish a model? So it's already April, and I've finished one and rebuilt two, the little tiger moth and the vampire. I have worked on a Shackleton. I've got a Phantom 148 very close to finished, but I mean, you know, actual whole builds finished this year is like one. So if you're out there modeling and you're completing them at a good rate, keep it up. Good work. Not like me. Okay, off to the workbench again. Cheers.